This morning, my message is entitled To Live Deliberately, and it's based on a reading by Henry David Thoreau. Now, I have come to understand that his family actually pronounced his name Thorough instead of Thoreau. Thorough. Like my mom used to say, clean, you better do a thorough job. Thorough job when you clean those windows. Get up in the edges. Do a thorough job. Thorough. So the pronunciation was with the emphasis on the first part. However, I have been told by the experts on the internet that since we've said Thoreau so long, that is also correct. So I may say thorough and I may say Thoreau, but both will be, as my friend Sherry says, it'll be all right, it'll be okay, it'll be all right, it'll be okay, it'll be all right. Now, I did not choose Thoreau last year when I was choosing Unitarian Universalists that made a difference. There were so many in that group during that time period that I could have chosen, and he was in that Transcendentalist group. I instead chose Margaret Fuller, but I could have very easily chosen Henry David Thoreau, and I will share with you a little bit about his biography as well as share with you about these words because I think you need a little review of the history, and for those of you that may not know as much about him. And in doing so, I do want to put up one quote about him that sort of shadows his whole biography. He said, "If a man does not keep pace with his companions, perhaps it is because he hears a different drummer. Let him step to the music he hears, however measured or far away." And that is what he did. He definitely was someone who marched to the beat of a different drummer. Now, my daddy would not have liked him. I can say that. My daddy's not here to disagree. He would have looked at this man's life and he would have said, he got all that education, but didn't do much good. He was rather, kind of shiftless. He didn't have much ambition, didn't amount much. My daddy thought you had to get a lot of stuff done, be efficient. My mom was kind of like that too. I got a double dose. So I got a double dose of that, and I marched to their drum for most of my life, getting that stuff done, But I'm beginning to try to listen to Thoreau's drum as I get older a little bit more. Well, here's a little bit about him. David Henry Thoreau was born July 12, 1817. And no, I did not make a mistake in saying that. That was the name his parents gave him, David Henry Thoreau. But as I said, he marched to a different drummer, and he decided he'd rather his name be Henry David Thoreau. So he started calling himself, and he eventually became Henry David Thoreau. Now, this is the farmhouse that he was born into and lived in growing up. It's still there. If you go and visit, there's a museum there. You can go and visit the farmhouse. I think we should one day take a heritage tour and go up and see all this stuff. Who wants to go with me? All right, we'll do it. We'll plan that out one day. But this farmhouse is still there. As you can see, it's a relatively nice house, isn't it? So he was born into a privileged life. He was. Now, his dad was in the pencil business, and his mother, because they had a large house, took in boarders. So that gave them plenty to do what they needed to do. So much so that they could even send him to Harvard. Now, while he was at Harvard, he tried teaching, but he went back to the pencil factory for a while. He discovered a way to make a better pencil. So he was getting into the business, the family business, figured out if you mixed it with a certain clay, it'd hold up better. It became known as the Thoreau pencil. This is a picture of, in the museum you can see there, of some things, the Thoreau pencils that were there and that were sold widely. Actually, that was the Thoreau pencil and the pencil factory, and the money that his mom took in with the boarders helped him to be able to go somewhere to Harvard. Now, Thoreau was like some of our Georgia Southern students. He took his time going to school. I had to get through 3 years, but Thoreau took his time going to school, but he got a Harvard education, and he did. He and his brother decided that they would open up a school. He graduated in 1837. They did try to have a school. It failed. That was okay with him, though, you know. He didn't take that too hard. He could do something else. He had made a lot of friends during that time, and these were what many of us know as our friends, the Unitarians, most of the Unitarians, the Transcendentalists. The leader of the Transcendentalists, the one that was the major one, was Emerson. Emerson's 15 years older than Thoreau, but Emerson saw in Thoreau a bright young man and took him under his wing. He just liked him so much. And so he hung out a lot with Emerson, and you'll see there too, Margaret Fuller's there and others. So he enjoyed all his intellectual discussion with these Transcendentalists. He did some writing. He was a writer and did some writing. He published in their journal, The Dial. He never made any money writing. He self-published a couple of books, but they stayed stacked up. A few of them sold, but he wasn't making money out of it. But you know, that was okay because he could make money, enough money otherwise, and he didn't need much money. He didn't care for much money. He had this idea that we worked and worked and worked for money. For what? You know, we didn't need it. An example he gave that I think shares how he thinks about it was about, you know, if you had a relative that lived a piece down the road and you wanted to go see them, and the quickest, easiest way to go was to get on the train. The cost of the ticket to go see your relative would be about the same as a day's wages, okay? Well, you could work all day one day and get enough money to get on that train to go see your relative. But the relative lived a day's walk from you. You could have just walked there and been there, and not had to work that day. That's kind of the way he saw things. Now, he worked some. So he estimated about 6 weeks out of the year all total that he would actually put in some work. And then he would have friends he would call on and just use it and live simply. Now, Emerson was his friend, and he kept on telling Emerson, I just wish I could just live in the woods in a little place and just live simply. So Emerson says, I got a place in the woods. Go on out there and build you a house. Build your place. So he did. And that was Walden Pond. That was not Thoreau's land. It was Emerson's, his friend Emerson. So as Thoreau said, he squatted on it, right? He just took a piece of it and cleared it off. He wasn't lazy. He was a hard worker. He built that house himself, that little house. Worked hard doing it. He believed, though, that the mass of men, he said, lead lives of quiet desperation. He didn't want to live that kind of life. So he built this little house for an experiment. He said, I must see if I can just live out here and live peacefully, alone by myself. He didn't have a partner or spouse. He did have friends, and he would go in to see them, and people walking by would stop by and visit with him. So he wasn't by himself all the time. And he had his little animal friends that he would commune with, as you see in the book here that Justin read with us. It was here that he wrote his thoughts about living deliberately that I'm going to be sharing with you. Because that was what he was attempting to do, to live deliberately. And because I'm bringing it up now in this part of his life, this is where I'm going to share with you those words that are in the back of our hymnal that I have selected for our sacred text this time, number 660, to live deliberately. Here we are. There we are, just in a hurry to get things done. Well, Thoreau says, why should we live in such a hurry and waste of life? We are determined to be starved before we're hungry. He says, I don't want to live like that. I wish to live deliberately. Deliberately. What does that word mean? What does he mean when he says he wants to live deliberately? Well, I looked it up. It comes from, of course, the word deliberate, which is both an adjective and a verb. As an adjective, deliberate, it means it's done consciously and intentionally. That what we do with intention. We do consciously. As a verb, deliberate, it means to engage in long and careful consideration. And it takes time to deliberate. He said he wanted to front only the essential facts of life not deal with everything. And another quote, he says, our life is frittered away by detail. Simplify, simplify. I saw somebody quoting him, he had simplify, simplify, and they'd scratched out one of the simplifies. You don't need just want to simplify. You don't need to say it twice. So we have all these things, and we've been trying to do this for years in this congregation. We've had many sermons about this. Back when someone came and asked us to go back home and count how many shirts we had in our closet and our drawers. And some of us did, and we were like, oh, appalled. And we came back and did say, this is ridiculous. Why do we need all of these things? Many of us have been working hard to reduce and simplify and to use things again. And then, of course, it's so good for our environment for us to do this anyway. Now, another thing he says, I wish to learn what life has to teach, and not when I come to die, discover that I had not lived. A lot of us, as we get older, think about that. We're going to be on our deathbed someday. Now, he wasn't old when he wrote this. But he said, whenever he does die, when he does get his deathbed, he doesn't want to think, I didn't really live. He says, I do not wish to live what is not life. Living is so dear. Nor do I wish to practice resignation unless it is quite necessary. Living is so dear. The probability that you are even here, that you exist, is so rare. It's a miracle that you're even here, that we even happen to have a planet that has exactly the perfect kind of atmosphere that we can have life forms, that humanity has evolved. That's a miracle. And the fact that that particular sperm and egg got together to make you instead of your brother or sister, they're very different in some ways. Some ways they're like you, but some ways they're very different. But made you, the chance that you are here. Some people tried to figure it up and said it's like 1 in 500 trillion. That's the chance of you being here and getting here. 1 in 500 trillion. Some Buddhist writer said that would be the same as if the whole ocean was there with one sea turtle in it, and you threw out a life preserver, and you happened to, that one sea turtle came through it. That is the chance you have of even being here. Your life is very rare. You talk about a precious gem, very rare, very precious. So we should live it in that manner, knowing that it's so precious and that we have it here. Thoreau said, I wish to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life. Now, you know what this baby's doing, gnawing on this bone, getting the bone and keeping quiet while we finish our food. I've been to some of y'all to eat wings at the restaurant. Some of y'all eat those wings and you leave them on that plate with meat left on them. Not me. I mean, not only do I get all the meat and all the other stuff, and I bite into it. That marrow's good, y'all. I get the goodie out of every bit of that bone. And that's what he said he wanted to do about life. Get the goodie out of it. Go deep. Don't leave something good sitting there. Go for it. And to do that, you can't go for everything, so you have to reduce to the essential stuff. He says, I want to cut a broad swath. That doesn't mean you don't take it in and say, so I'm not going to even look at that. I want to cut a broad swath, but then I want to drive life into a corner and reduce it to its lowest terms. You know, we should do it in school. Reduce that fraction to the lowest terms. Reduce life to the lowest terms. I think about it too. Y'all know I'm not a cook, although I'm going to cook on Thanksgiving. Y'all welcome to come. Bring something too, though, because my turkey dressing may not be any good. But I listen on NPR to that cooking show where that woman talks about those dishes. Do y'all listen to that? Oh, it sounds so good. My mouth is just watering. So she's always talking about the dishes they're cooking. And when I'm going back down back and forth down to Brunswick. I listen to her sometimes. And she's talking about those dishes, and she's always talking about reduction sauce. You know what a reduction sauce is? You cooks know. I've never made a reduction sauce in my life.
Yeah,
but
you just didn't know.
But they put all this good stuff in there, and then they cook it down till it gets to the real goodie. It's thick, just chunk full of the real goodness of it. You reduce it down to the goodie and enjoy the goodie. That's what we need to do with life. Get rid of the frilly stuff that we don't need. Reduce it down to the goodie and get the goodie. So, now if we do that, he says, if it proves to be mean, when you've done that, when you look at life and taken it all in, if it proves to be mean, then to get the whole and genuine meanness of it and publish its meanness to the world. Some of us have been trying to do that because we found some meanness in this world. We need to call it out. Right. Okay, some of it's mean. I'll get that meanness and I'm going to publish it to the world. This is the mean part, and some of it is. The Buddha did that in the way he looked at life. He found out some of it's not too good. There's suffering in life. When he pointed out his Four Noble Truths, the first two are the ones about that. You're going to have suffering in this life. People get sick. People are ill. They have mental health problems, other things. You have problems in your life. Things are going to happen. When it's pretty good, you better enjoy it because the shoe's going to drop. Somebody's going to get sick. Something's going to happen. Now, everybody in here, some of you have been through stuff recently. That's the way it is. It's hard. Some of it's hard. So acknowledge that. And acknowledge that part of it, our dealing with it, is because we're so attached to some things and we can't handle some things because of our attachments. But the Buddha went on and that helped us also to be able to deal with it, didn't he? So Thoreau did too. He went on further than just looking at the difficult stuff. He said, or if it is sublime to know it by experience and to be able to give a true account of it. Now, sublime is kind of an old-fashioned term. I don't use that in my vocabulary. I don't say sublime. Do y'all talk about sublime? No. It sounds sort of sublime? Good. Some people still live in the sublime. So I said, okay, we don't use that much. I better look it up and have the definition there. So sublime means of such excellence, grandeur, or beauty as to inspire great admiration or awe. It's just all full of awe, full of grandeur, just sublime. Are there parts of your life that are like that sometimes? Yesterday, I was walking in the woods across the pond now, and it happened to be that the spider had put a little piece of a line out, and a little leaf had caught him, and the wind was blowing, and the leaf was dancing. And it danced here, and it danced there, and I was just so tickled that the leaf was dancing for me. Well, I knew what was really happening, but it was sublime. I was just, look at that. There's a leaf dancing in the woods. Now, that's a small thing, and I could have overlooked it, but I'm trying not to. You don't have to get on a plane and ride to some foreign land to find something beautiful and something inspiring. It's all around us. You take the time. So he said, well, you should take that time. And it does take time, folks, so you have to make some time for it. You should take that time and then give a true account of that too. And that's what he did in his writings. He took the time and then he gave a true account. I want you to just close your eyes a minute and I'm going to read to you one of his true accounts. This is a delicious evening when the whole body is one sense and imbibes delight through every pore. I go and come with a strange liberty in nature, a part of herself. As I walk along the stony shore of the pond in my shirt sleeves, though it is cool as well as cloudy and windy, and I see nothing special to attract me, all the elements are unusually congenial to me. The bullfrogs trump to usher in the night, and the note of the whippoorwill is borne on the rippling wind from over the water. Sympathy with the fluttering alder and poplar leaves almost takes away my breath. Yet, like the lake, my serenity is rippled but not ruffled. These small waves raised by the evening wind are as remote from storm as the smooth reflecting surface. Though it is now dark, the wind still blows and roars in the wood, the waves still dash, and some creatures lull the rest with their notes. The repose is never complete. The wildest animals do not repose, but seek their prey now. The fox and skunk and rabbit now roam the fields and woods without fear. They are nature's watchmen, links which connect the days of animated life. Thoreau giving a true account of beauty. True account. And we can still enjoy it today by reading his works. I've been reading a lot of Thoreau as I prepared for this, a lot of Walden. I read these things and I'm reading them and it reminds me so much of everything, things my son tells me, my son John tells me. Sometimes I get frustrated when he would tell me this stuff. And now I'm getting wiser about it now though. And I'm getting more open to knowing, no, this is good stuff that we need to listen to. Now, Thoreau did not stay at Walden Pond. He stayed there 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days. But while he was there, he did some other things besides just sit around the pond. One thing he did during the second year, he went into town. They said he was going into town to maybe get his shoes repaired. He did have to spend some money on some things, as I said. While he was there, the poll officer arrested him, the police officer, and said arrested him because he had not been paying his poll taxes. Mm-hmm. Well, he had not paid his poll taxes because he was protesting. He said he was protesting the Mexican-American War and slavery, which he both disagreed with, and he was not going to support those things, so he was not going to pay his poll taxes. But now, if you're going to do that kind of thing, you have to be ready to pay the consequences. And he was. And they said, well, we're going to arrest you and put you in jail. They did. They arrested him and put him in jail. Now, this is a story that there's no evidence for, because Thoreau didn't write about it, but the story's been told down through the ages, so who knows, maybe it happened. Then his friend Emerson, who also lived in Concord, came in and said, Henry, why are you here? And he said, why are you not here? All right. So that was a story told about Thoreau in jail. He only spent 1 night in jail. Somebody said it was his aunt, came and paid the poll taxes for him. He was upset about that, but came and paid them for him. They released him from jail. But he did spend 1 night. But his 1 night in jail and his talking to people and interviewing people there and thinking about that, what had happened, ended up with his writing other essays, which became Civil Disobedience, which then were inspirational for Gandhi and for King. So all those things have come down to us now from Thoreau. Another place he went during his second year in there was he went back to the Maine Woods. Now, this is a place that he had been, all told, he went 6 times. He loved the Maine Woods, loved being there, loved walking in them, and they were a lovely place for him to be. And one time when he was there, he hired an Indian scout to take him places where no one else had taken him, he said. And he said he would not have been able to go to those places without that person knowing the way and getting him there safely and getting him back safely. He liked to go with some of the hunters. He didn't hunt, but he would like to look at the moose and the wildlife. And he would go out, they knew where they were, and they would take him. And he would get to enjoy seeing them in the Maine Woods. And so this is another book that you can still read, The Maine Woods. After he left, after 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days, when he left Walden, he moved in with his friend Emerson. Emerson was someone who was traveling sometime to Europe and doing other things, and so he said, I'll come and look after your house. You know, he's a house sitter. So he moved in with him for a while, stayed with him, continued to write, continued to work some. He did some surveying. He had skills, a lot of skills. He just didn't see the sense in working himself to death when he didn't need a lot. He knew what he needed. And indeed, we have to admit that he was very privileged. In fact, he could always go back to his father's house too. So he had the kind of privilege that allowed him to do that some others do not have. But he said, I'm going to take the time to enjoy life and to live life deliberately. He later moved back to his father's house. He died on May 6, 1862. He was only 44 years old, but he died peacefully. His aunt asked, he had tuberculosis and he'd had it for a while, but he finally got to him and he finally did die. His aunt asked, "Have you made your peace with God?" He responded, "I didn't know we had ever quarreled." Now, aware he was dying, Thoreau's last words were this: "Now comes good sailing," followed by two lone words: moose, Indian. He died on May 6, 1862, at age 44. I consider Henry David Thoreau, as he wanted to be called, or Thoreau. I consider him my spiritual ancestor and friend. He has left us with many good words, many good teachings that we can still learn from. Especially this idea of living deliberately. And I vow myself to try a little better to do that. I invite you to share with me one more time in the reading of these words, number 660 in the back of our hymnal. Why should we live in such a hurry and waste of life?
We are determined to starve before we are hungry.
I wish to live deliberately, to hunt only the essential facts of life.
I wish to learn what life has to teach, and not, when I come to die, discover that I have not lived.
I do not wish to live what is not life. Living is so dear.
Nor do I wish to practice resignation unless it is quite necessary.
I wish to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life.
I want to cut across the swath, to divide life into a corner and reduce it to its lowest terms.
If it proves to be mean, then to get the whole and genuine meanness of it and publish its meanness to the world.
For it gives us time to know it by experience and to be able to give a true account of it.
May we all understand and address the meanness of life, yet take the time to experience the sublime. Amen. Blessed be.